First Contact's Folly. High Commander Vextrol stood at the command deck of the Kraxan flagship Eternal Dominion, his four arms clasped behind his back, as he studied the holographic projection of the unremarkable blue planet before him. 3 centuries of military conquest had taught the Kraxan Empire one unchanging truth. True warriors were forged in the fires of extreme worlds. Their own species had evolved on a death world of crushing gravity and caustic storms. Every notable military force they'd encountered came from similarly harsh environments. This planet, designated Sol 3, was disappointingly moderate. Stable orbit, reasonable gravity, breathable atmosphere. It was the kind of world that bred weakness. The indigenous species, these humans, had barely managed spaceflight. Their military technology was primitive compared to Kraxan standards. The fact that his superiors insisted on a formal evaluation of their combat capabilities seemed almost insulting. High Commander, his second-in-command, Strategic Officer Miralith, approached with a data tablet. The preliminary analysis of their global communication networks is complete. Vextrol's upper right hand reached for the tablet while his lower arms remained clasped. Summarize. They're peculiar, sir. Their military forces are fragmented into national entities, yet they maintain a complex web of alliances. Their weapons are primarily kinetic and chemical-based, though we've detected concerning advances in several key areas. Concerning. Vextrol's head ridge flared with amusement. What could be concerning about projectile weapons when we have energy shields? Miraleth's skin shifted to a darker shade of blue, a sign of discomfort among their species. It's not their current capabilities that worry me, sir. It's their rate of advancement. They've gone from primitive atmospheric flight to rudimentary space travel in less than 2 centuries. A sign of their technological immaturity. Vextrol dismissed. They're in their explosive growth phase. It will plateau. With respect, sir, there's more. Their combat doctrine is chaotic, unpredictable. They have thousands of distinct martial arts styles, hundreds of different military traditions. Their warfare methods have evolved dramatically even within their recent history. Most concerning is their entertainment media. This caught Vextrol's attention. Explain. They spend an inordinate amount of time imagining and simulating warfare scenarios. Their fiction constantly explores hypothetical conflicts, including with advanced alien species. They appear to be preparing, sir, not just for current threats, but for scenarios far beyond their technological level. Vextrol studied the planet again. Something about Miraleth's report nagged at his tactical instincts, honed over decades of conquest. You believe this merits more than a standard evaluation. I believe we should be thorough, sir. Their history suggests they're remarkably adaptive. When faced with superior forces, they've demonstrated a tendency to evolve their tactics rapidly. Very well. Vextrol's head ridge rippled with decisive patterns. Prepare a diplomatic contact team. Let's see how these humans handle formal first contact protocols. That should give us a baseline for their actual capabilities. The diplomatic mission was assembled within hours, a small delegation led by Ambassador Corell, one of their most experienced negotiators. They would land at the humans' primary international assembly point, this United Nations, with appropriate ceremony and protocol. Corell's first report came just 6 hours later, and its contents made Vextrol's scales itch. They asked about our weapons. Corell transmitted, not in an aggressive way, but with disturbing specificity. Their technical experts had questions about our ship's shield harmonics that they shouldn't have even known to ask. And sir, they're smiling constantly. It's unsettling. They seem genuinely excited about the possibility of learning new combat techniques. They're trying to manipulate you, Ambassador, Vextrol replied. Standard intimidation tactics. No, sir, this isn't intimidation. They invited me to something called a martial arts exhibition. Their combat forms are, sir, they fight for recreation. Their children are taught combat skills as sport. They have combat competitions where they deliberately restrict themselves to primitive weapons or bare hands, simply to maintain proficiency. One of their diplomats casually mentioned that his daughter's hobby is something called mixed martial arts. Vextrol felt a cold sensation in his secondary stomach. "What are you suggesting, Ambassador?" "Sir, I don't think they're showing us their real capabilities. The whole planet feels like a combat training facility disguised as a civilization. Even their civilian entertainment is filled with combat scenarios. They call it action movies, but it's clearly tactical simulation." Before Vextrol could respond, Miraleth rushed onto the command deck. "Sir, we've detected an energy surge from the planet's surface. Hostile action." Vextrol's combat reflexes kicked in. "No, sir. They're testing something. Some kind of particle accelerator technology." "Sir, the energy readings, they're theoretically impossible for their level of development." Vextrol stared at the peaceful-looking blue world below them. For the first time in his long military career, he felt a sensation he couldn't immediately identify. When recognition came, it shocked him. It was fear. "Recall the ambassador," he ordered, "immediately, and send word to High Command. The standard evaluation protocols will be insufficient. We need a full tactical assessment team." As he watched his orders being carried out, Vextrol couldn't shake the feeling that they'd stumbled onto something far more significant than a simple primitive world. These humans weren't just another species to be tested and categorized. They were something entirely new, and as the Eternal Dominion moved into a higher orbit, Vextrol realized that the humans' seemingly peaceful greeting ceremonies and diplomatic smiles hadn't been signs of weakness at all. They were the confident expressions of predators who knew exactly what they were capable of. The real question was, did the Kraxan Empire want to find out just how capable they were? The test of steel. The evaluation arena aboard the Kraxan testing vessel, Crucible of Victory, fell silent as the 5 human representatives stepped out of their transport. High Commander Vextrol, observing from the command deck, noted their casual demeanor with growing unease. These weren't the elite warriors he'd expected Earth's governments to send. They appeared almost deliberately unremarkable. Captain Sarah Chen led the group, a compact woman whose easy smile seemed at odds with her role as a Special Forces commander. Behind her walked Technical Sergeant James O'Connor, who spent more time examining the alien architecture with childlike curiosity than maintaining any semblance of military bearing. The others, Lieutenant Rodriguez, Specialist Williams, and Combat Engineer Cooper, displayed similar lacks of ceremony. "They send us maintenance workers for a combat trial." Sub-Commander Kresh growled, his battle ridges flaring with insult. "This is how they respond to our challenge." Miraleth, who hadn't left Vextrol's side since the diplomatic mission, shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, I've reviewed their service records. They're not maintenance workers. They're something called Special Forces." "Explain." "They're adaptability specialists. Their military maintains entire units dedicated to unconventional warfare. These 5 have particular expertise in improvised combat scenarios." Vextrol watched as Captain Chen chatted amiably with their combat instructor, asking questions about the Kraxan ceremonial blade he carried. "They don't move like warriors." "No, sir. They move like their planet's apex predators. Relaxed. Conservative with their energy, only displaying their capabilities when necessary." The first trial was supposed to be simple, a basic assessment of human combat reflexes. The Kraxan combat instructor, Master Warrior Zexkar, would demonstrate their traditional blade forms. The humans would attempt to defend themselves with their choice of provided weapons. Nobody expected Captain Chen to step into the ring empty-handed. "No weapon?" Zexkar asked, mandibles twitching with amusement. "Oh, I thought we'd start with hand-to-hand," Chen replied cheerfully, "unless that's not permitted." The combat master's blade hummed to life, its energy field casting a purple glow across the arena. "As you wish, human. I will restrict myself to basic forms out of courtesy." Chen's smile never wavered. "That's thoughtful of you. What happened next would be reviewed thousands of times in Kraxan military academies. Zexkar moved with typical Kraxan precision, his blade tracing deadly arcs through the air. Chen seemed to flow around the attacks like water, her movements economical and precise. When the blade came within inches of her throat, she didn't even flinch. She simply wasn't there when it arrived. Fascinating weapon, she commented, ducking under another swing. The field extends about 3 centimeters past the blade edge. Right. Creates a sort of secondary cutting surface. Zexkar's next attack was decidedly not a basic form. Chen's response was to step inside his guard, trap his primary striking arm, and use his own momentum to send him flying. The combat master crashed into the arena wall with a sound that made every Kraxan observer flinch. "Sorry about that," Chen called out, still smiling. "In my defense, you did switch to advanced forms." The subsequent trials didn't go any better for Kraxan pride. O'Connor turned their most advanced combat simulator into a mockery, identifying and exploiting programming patterns that shouldn't have been detectable. Rodriguez demonstrated human martial arts that made Kraxan close combat techniques look rigid and predictable. Williams proved that human primitive projectile weapons, in the right hands, could be just as effective as energy weapons. And Cooper showed them why letting a human combat engineer examine your technology was a terrible idea. They're not even using their full capabilities, Miraleth observed during the 4th trial. They're learning, adapting. Each demonstration reveals only a fraction of their potential while gathering information about our methods. Vextrol had reached the same conclusion. The diplomatic mission, the evaluation request, even these trials, they're letting us think we're in control while they assess our strengths and weaknesses. The final trial was meant to be a simulated squad combat scenario. The humans would face off against an elite Kraxan fire team in a complex urban environment. Victory conditions were simple: capture the objective or eliminate the opposing force. The humans spent their preparation time playing some kind of card game. "Are you not going to plan your strategy?" Sub-Commander Kresh demanded. "Oh, we did that during the first trial," Chen replied, laying down a card. "Full house, James. Pay up." The simulation lasted exactly 6 minutes and 23 seconds. The humans moved through the combat zone like ghosts, using techniques none of the observers had ever seen. They turned the environment itself into a weapon, demonstrated coordination that seemed almost telepathic, and systematically dismantled the Kraxan team's carefully planned defense. When it was over, Chen approached the observation deck. The perpetual smile was gone, replaced by an expression that made Vextrol's scales crawl. "Thank you for the trials," she said. "They've been very educational. We'd like to extend an invitation now. Your best combat units against ours. Real conditions, no simulations. You want actual combat." Kresh sputtered. "After mere evaluation trials. Of course. After all, isn't that what this was really about? You wanted to know if we were worth conquering." Her smile returned, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We wanted to know if you were worth fighting." As the humans departed, Vextrol turned to Miraleth. "Send word to High Command. The humans, they're not what we thought they were. Sir, they're not primitive warriors developing into a spacefaring species." Vextrol watched their transport disappear into the darkness of space. They're predators who learned to build spaceships. The difference, he was beginning to understand, was significant. And somewhere on Earth, humanity's real warriors were waiting. Warriors compared to whom these 5 Special Forces operators were merely scouts. The test of steel was over. The real trial was about to begin. Hidden depths. The skirmish began with a single Kraxan patrol vessel investigating an anomaly in the Kuiper Belt. It ended with the patrol vessel returning to the Eternal Dominion in a way that defied every principle of Kraxan military doctrine. It retreated. High Commander Vextrol stared at the patrol commander's report, his scales shifting colors with increasing agitation. "Explain this again. Slowly. Patrol Commander Yextel stood rigidly at attention, clearly uncomfortable. We detected unusual energy signatures consistent with primitive human FTL experiments. As per protocol, we moved to investigate. We found a small human vessel, barely armed by our standards. And they invited us to observe their test, said they were having trouble with their drive calibration, asked if we'd mind giving them some baseline readings from our sensors. Yextal's mandibles clicked nervously. It seemed harmless. Miraleth, who had been analyzing the sensor logs, looked up sharply. They weren't testing an FTL drive. No, Yextal admitted. They were testing something else, something that shouldn't have been possible. The sensor logs told a story that none of them wanted to believe. The human vessel had used the Kraxan Patrol's own sensor readings to perfect a device that didn't so much break the laws of physics as politely ask them to step aside. They'd turned the patrol vessel's active scans into a diagnostic tool for their experiment. They weaponized our curiosity, Miraleth said softly. They knew we'd investigate, knew we'd scan them. They turned our own protocols against us. Vextrol's commands came quickly after that. All Kraxan vessels were to maintain double shield configurations, no unnecessary scans of human vessels, no response to their increasingly frequent requests for technical assistance or collaborative research. But it was too late. Reports began flooding in from across the solar system. Human vessels, previously considered primitive and barely worth monitoring, were demonstrating capabilities that shouldn't have existed. They'd taken fragments of observed Kraxan technology and not just replicated them. They'd improved them, combined them with their own innovations in ways that the Kraxan Engineering Guild declared criminally improvisational. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, Sub-Commander Kresh reported, reviewing footage of a human mining vessel casually using a modified version of Kraxan shield harmonics to improve their asteroid drilling efficiency. They're flaunting their adaptations. Because they want us to see, Miraleth realized. Every demonstration is a message. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a laboratory. Each encounter with Kraxan technology became an opportunity for learning, adaptation, and improvement. They didn't just copy. They innovated, combined, refined, and repurposed. The breaking point came during what should have been a routine patrol near Mars. A small fleet of human vessels approached the Kraxan patrol group with another request for collaborative exercises. Before the patrol commander could refuse, the humans demonstrated their latest innovation. They hadn't copied Kraxan shield technology. They'd fundamentally reimagined it. They're using our own shield harmonics to create constructive interference patterns, the Engineering Guild's analysis stated. They've turned our defensive technology into a weapon system that our shields can't counter because they're using the same fundamental principles. It's elegant, horrifying, but elegant. Vextrol called an emergency council aboard the Eternal Dominion. The command deck was thick with tension as ship commanders and strategic officers argued about how to respond to this unprecedented situation. We could adapt our shield frequencies, one commander suggested. They'd just adapt with us, another countered. They're not following our technological development path. They're creating their own, using our technology as inspiration rather than template. This isn't just about shields, Miraleth interrupted. Look at these analysis patterns. Every time we think we've seen the extent of their capabilities, they reveal something new. They're not showing us their real technology level at all. They're showing us just enough to make us react, then studying our reactions. A silence fell over the command deck as the implications sank in. How? Kresh finally asked. How are they advancing so quickly? Even with our technology as reference, this rate of innovation should be impossible. Because they're not bound by doctrine, Vextrol said quietly. We advance through careful iteration, building on proven foundations. They treat technological development like combat. They improvise, adapt, take risks that our scientists would never consider. They fail faster than we succeed, Miraleth added, and they learn from every failure. The discussion was interrupted by a new report, a human diplomatic vessel requesting permission to dock with the Eternal Dominion. The reason for their visit was listed as Technology Exchange Proposal. Vextrol read the delegation list and felt his scales ripple with recognition. Captain Chen was among them. "They're not even pretending anymore," he said. "This isn't a diplomatic mission. It's a demonstration." "Of what?" Kresh demanded. "Of choice," Miraleth answered. "They're offering us a decision. Adapt with them, or be left behind." As the human vessel approached, Vextrol remembered Chen's words from the combat trials. "We wanted to know if you were worth fighting." Now he understood. They'd never been testing human combat capabilities at all. They'd been testing Kraxan adaptability, and he wasn't sure they'd passed. The humans weren't just warriors or innovators. They were something his people had forgotten how to be. Students of everything, ready to learn from anyone, willing to break any convention in pursuit of improvement. And as he prepared to receive their delegation, Vextrol wondered if perhaps that was the most dangerous capability of all. The paradigm shift. The Grand Strategic Council of the Kraxan Empire had not convened an emergency session in over 3 centuries. Now they sat in stunned silence as High Commander Vextrol's report echoed through the ancient chamber of the Will of Dominion. "The humans have achieved in months what takes our best engineers decades," Vextrol concluded. "They're not just copying our technology, they are reimagining it. And they're doing it with a speed that defies all conventional wisdom." Supreme Commander Zexthor, his scales dark with age and wisdom, leaned forward on his command throne. "You believe they pose a genuine threat to the Empire. I believe they've already changed the Empire, whether we recognize it or not. Every ship captain now questions whether their tactical doctrine is still valid. Every engineer wonders if their methods are becoming obsolete. The humans aren't just advancing. They're making us doubt our own foundations." The chamber erupted in heated debate. Centuries of military tradition clashed with undeniable evidence of human capabilities. Battle-hardened commanders argued with guild representatives about the proper response to this unprecedented situation. "We should strike now," Fleet Commander Kexlar declared, his battle ridges flaring, "while we still hold a technological advantage." "Do we?" Miraleth stepped forward, her presence unusual in such a gathering, but deemed necessary given her expertise on human behavior. "Every time we think we understand their capabilities, they reveal new depths. We haven't seen their true potential. We've seen what they choose to show us." The debate was interrupted by an urgent transmission. A Kraxan research vessel, studying spatial anomalies near the human colony on Mars, had encountered something impossible. The humans had created a functional micro-singularity, not as a weapon, but as a power source. "They're playing with forces they barely understand," one of the guild scientists protested. "No," Miraleth corrected. "They understand exactly what they're doing. They've just chosen to accept risks we would never consider." Supreme Commander Zexthor's scales shifted to the deep blue of profound thought. "Explain." "The humans have a saying, 'Necessity is the mother of invention.' But they define necessity differently than we do. To them, the mere possibility of a technology is necessity enough to pursue it. They don't wait for perfect understanding. They experiment, fail, learn, and improve. Their entire civilization is built on this principle." The silence that followed was heavy with implication. "We face a choice," Vextrol continued. "Our military doctrine, refined over centuries, tells us to crush potential threats before they can fully emerge. But the humans, they're not just a potential threat. They're a mirror showing us what we've lost in our pursuit of perfection." A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber, showing the latest human innovations. Their ships now moved in ways that violated Kraxan tactical doctrine. Their weapons combined principles that should have been incompatible. Their defensive systems adapted faster than attacking forces could compensate. "Look at their history," Miraleth urged. "Every time they faced a superior force, they'd done the same thing. Learn, adapt, improvise, overcome. They turned their greatest weakness, their short lives, into their greatest strength. They must innovate quickly because they have no choice. The implications stunned the council. The Kraxan Empire had achieved dominance through careful refinement of proven methods. The humans achieved progress through constant revolution. They're not just advancing technologically, one of the elder council members observed. They're evolving their entire approach to existence. While we perfect what we know, they chase what they don't know. Supreme Commander Zexthor raised all four hands for silence. You're suggesting we abandon our ways, adopt human methods. No, Vextrol replied. I'm suggesting we remember what we've forgotten. Our ancestors didn't achieve spaceflight by following doctrine. They achieved it by daring to try what had never been done. The humans haven't surpassed us. They've reminded us of who we used to be. As if to punctuate his point, another report arrived. The humans had just successfully tested a new form of FTL drive, one that combined Kraxan principles with theories their scientists had dismissed centuries ago as too unstable. It worked perfectly. They're not going to wait for us to decide, Miraleth warned. Every moment we spend debating, they spend innovating. They've already offered technological exchange programs. Multiple human research teams have requested permission to study with our engineering guilds, not to learn our technology, but to explore new possibilities together. The council chamber fell silent again as the full weight of the situation settled over them. The Kraxan Empire stood at a crossroads. Their military might, their technological superiority, their very way of life. All of it rested on principles that the humans had cheerfully ignored in their relentless drive to improve. Perhaps, Supreme Commander Zexthor said slowly, it is time for the Empire to remember how to learn. The response was immediate. Guild representatives protested. Military commanders argued. But beneath the chaos, a new current was emerging, a recognition that the universe had changed. The humans hadn't just challenged Kraxan military might. They'd challenged their fundamental assumptions about progress itself. As the debate raged on, Vextrol received a private message from Captain Chen. It was typically human in its directness. We've figured out how to improve your FTL drive efficiency by 40%. Want to know how? He looked at Miraleth, who had also received the message. Her scales had shifted to the rare color pattern that indicated both amusement and admiration. They're not even trying to be subtle anymore, she observed. No, Vextrol agreed. They're giving us one last chance to choose our future. The question is, are we still capable of choosing change? The answer to that question would determine not just the future of the Kraxan Empire, but perhaps the future of galactic civilization itself. And somewhere on Earth, humanity continued to innovate, unconcerned with the crisis they'd sparked in one of the galaxy's oldest empires. After all, to them, crisis was just another word for opportunity. Evolution's children. The observation deck of the Eternal Dominion offered a perfect view of Earth, that deceptively peaceful blue world that had changed everything. High Commander Vextrol stood with Captain Chen, watching a joint human Kraxan engineering team test their latest collaborative project. You knew this would happen, Vextrol said. It wasn't a question. Chen's smile was gentler than during their first meeting, but no less confident. We knew something would happen. This particular outcome was just one possibility. You were prepared for war. We're always prepared for war. It's built into us. She turned to face him. But we're also prepared for peace, for trade, for collaboration. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight. It's our ability to choose not to. The test they were watching demonstrated this principle perfectly. Human and Kraxan engineers had combined their approaches to create something entirely new, a propulsion system that neither species could have developed alone. Your planet, Vextrol said carefully, it's not what we thought it was. No, Chen agreed. You saw a moderate world and assumed it bred weakness. What you didn't understand is that Earth's moderation is deceptive. Our planet is chaos masked by stability. She brought up a holographic display showing Earth's history, ice ages and warm periods, massive extinctions and explosive adaptations, continents that never stop moving, thousands of different environments, each demanding different survival strategies. Earth isn't moderate, it's extremely variable, and this made you what you are. It made us adaptable. Any species can evolve to survive extreme conditions if those conditions remain constant. But Earth never gave us that luxury. We had to become capable of surviving anything, of living anywhere, of turning any situation to our advantage. The engineering team's test concluded successfully. Cheers erupted from both human and Kraxan personnel, a sound that would have been unthinkable months ago. "Look at them," Chen said softly. "Your engineers are already starting to think like us, not abandoning their knowledge, but learning to see it differently, to play with possibilities." Miraleth joined them, her scales showing the new color patterns that had emerged since regular contact with humans began, patterns that reflected excitement about uncertainty, something their species had long considered a weakness. "The Supreme Commander's latest directive has been approved," she reported. "The engineering guilds are being reformed. Traditional advancement paths are being supplemented with what they're calling innovation protocols. Supervised chaos," Vextrol translated. "Exactly. We're learning to balance our need for perfection with the human drive for possibility." Miraleth's scales rippled with amusement, though some of the older guild members are still calling it sanctioned heresy. A new alert drew their attention. Another successful test, this time from a joint military exercise. Human special forces and Kraxan warriors had developed hybrid combat techniques that combined Kraxan precision with human adaptability. "Evolution never stops," Chen observed. "That's what we learned on Earth. The moment you think you've reached perfection, you've actually started to decline. The only constant is change." Vextrol watched as more test results came in. Across the solar system, joint human-Kraxan teams were rewriting the possibilities of what both species could achieve. The Empire was transforming, not through conquest or defeat, but through the simple recognition of a profound truth. Strength comes in many forms. "Your people," he said to Chen, "you could have approached this differently. Waited until you were stronger, kept your innovations secret." "We could have," she agreed. "But then we'd just be repeating the same patterns that have played out countless times across history. We decided to try something new, to offer genuine collaboration from a position of mutual respect, even though you knew some would call for war. Especially because of that. Humanity's greatest battles haven't been against external enemies. They've been against our own nature. Every time we choose cooperation over conflict, we evolve a little more." The observation deck fell silent as they watched Earth rotate slowly below them. This world, which had seemed so unremarkable at first glance, had produced a species that defied conventional wisdom about strength and advancement. "We thought we were testing you," Vextrol admitted, "but you were showing us something about ourselves." "That's the final lesson Earth taught us," Chen replied. "Every challenge is a mirror. Every encounter is an opportunity to evolve. You saw us as potential conquests or enemies. We saw you as potential partners in the greatest adventure of all, discovering what's possible." As if to emphasize her point, another alert sounded. A joint research team had just made a breakthrough in theoretical physics that challenged both human and Kraxan understanding of the universe. "Evolution's children," Miraleth mused. "That's what you are. Not just physically, but culturally, technologically, philosophically. Always changing, always adapting, always seeking new possibilities. And now," Chen added, "we're offering you the chance to evolve with us." The view of Earth was joined by Mars, where human Kraxan colonies were already taking shape. Beyond that, the stars beckoned, not as territories to be conquered, but as possibilities to be explored. The Kraxan Empire had sought to test humanity's strength. Instead, they had discovered a different kind of power, the strength to change, to grow, to evolve beyond rigid doctrines and fixed beliefs. And as the joint fleet prepared for its first mission of collaborative exploration, Vextrol realized that perhaps this was the greatest victory of all, not the triumph of one species over another, but the emergence of something entirely new. The children of evolution had become the parents of revolution, and the galaxy would never be the same.